Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time looking at my week 4 match in the TPS, the Purple Society, against SMBowser and his Tea Time Tyrannitars. As it stands, I am 3-0 in this league. I think off to a positive 14 differential start. Feeling really good about the season thus far, trying to keep the good times going and see how far I can go undefeated in this league. I very rarely get past week 3 with an undefeated record, so I'm in very unique territory for myself, and I'm hoping to continue with that. So before we get into the match, we're going to take a look at the team that he had available to him, and then the pieces I brought to best address it. So he's got a peculiar team. There's a lot of fighting and physical attackers going on in this mix. We've got Mega Gallade, the Halucha, the Urshifu Rapid Strike, all as primary physical attackers. You've got Tyranitar, which usually runs physically offensive, as well as Dragonite, which likes to run physically offensive. Some niche options down low with something like Sandslash and Lopunny, which traditionally run physically offensive. Electros, which can go mixed. And then some okay special attackers in the Heatran and the Sylveon. And I only say okay; they are good special attackers, but they generally serve as bulk. And this team doesn't have a lot of defensive pieces. Really relying on the Heatran and the Sylveon to kind of be those roles. To some extent, the Pincurchin and the Dragonite can also serve it, but there's not a lot of bulk going on with this team, and a lot of overlap in typing. I mean, we got 3 different fighting types. We've got a couple of flying types with the Dragonite and the Halucha, and a couple of electric types going on with the Pincurchin and the Electros. So there's a lot of overlap going on. I think this team has exploitable flaws, and it does really enable something like Pyukumuku or Corviknight to wall effectively to create openings for some of my other pieces. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at some of the things I prepped to address this. And I do want to note one big thing that's going to impact my prep is that his primary defoggers are Halucha and Dragonite, neither of which like to run that role. Dragonite can be a functional defogger, but it really hinders his mobility or his flexibility. And then the Sandslash also has the ability to rapid spin, but Sandslash has a hard time coming to a lot of matches, so I'm not overly concerned about it. With that in mind, first mon we're going to get to is the Mew. Obviously, Mew is going to come. This is my first time running a defensive Mew in this league. I've primarily leaned into sweeper sets or some kind of offensive potential Mew, but this one is going to be a very defensive role. Bold Nature, 248 HP, 252 defense, 8 special defense. That is a Colbur Berry aimed at being able to come in on whatever the Mega Gallade attack is, wall out the Mega Gallade for its stab attack, and then be able to eat a knockoff and then Will-O-Wisp it so that it is statused and no longer effective. And then other options for its moves outside of Will-O-Wisp are going to be Spikes and Seismic Toss. Spikes for the stacking. His team, again, has really limited defog and hazard control options, and so Spikes lets me whittle down the Sylveon, lets me whittle down the Heatran so that they have a really hard time getting health back. And then it makes it hard for him to regularly use those as defensive pivots if I disable their ability to come in safely without eating 25% chip. And then Seismic Toss really just aimed at doing general damage. Break subs on all of his mons because none of them get over 100 HP on their stats, so I can always break any sort of substats. And then Soft Boiled for health. And like I said, his hazard control is really weak, so spikes are really, really effective in this matchup to just punish his lack of hazard control. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Mew here. Next up is the Corviknight. Pretty standard Corviknight, pretty much the exact same Corviknight. I continue to run it. We've got the Impish Nature, 248 HP, 252 defense, 8 special defense. That's a Rocky Helmet again because he's got 3 fighting types, none of which easily push through Corviknight, so it really punishes them, especially Rapid Strike Urshifu has a really awful time dealing with this Corviknight because unless it's banded, it just can't 2-hit KO with Surging Strikes, and it loses so much HP for clicking Surging Strikes. U-turn Roost, pretty common. Defog, just in case he's putting up rocks before I can get things up, or he does something funky with his Pincurchin and setting hazards. And then Brave Bird, because he has 3 fighting types, and so being able to pummel them for good damage is really, really important. And then opting for Mirror Armor over Pressure as an ability, just so that Sylveon doesn't have any way to really deal with the Corviknight, even with no special defense investment by the Corviknight. As long as it's not a Calm Mind or some kind of specs or very offensive Sylveon, it just can't really push through this Corviknight, and it just kind of holds the line against it. So that's really what's going on with it. Nothing special at all here. It doesn't require it to be anything special just because the team is so physically offensive that it has a really tough time dealing with this Corviknight. And something like Sandslash, if it were to come, really has no way to pressure at all. So just a really well situated to be a good wall in this matchup. Mega Altaria going for an offensive set here. We've got the Jolly Nature, 252 attack, 4 special defense, 252 speed because the Dragonite is also an 80 speed tier, so I need to speed tie that. Dragon Dance, Body Slam, Roost, Earthquake. Pretty much decimate his team if I can get rid of Sylveon. After one Dragon Dance, I OHKO everything except for that Sylveon. The Tyranitar might live, and I don't think it does. The Dragonite, if it is maintaining the multi-scale, might take a Body Slam at +1, but that's really it. He's just not well positioned to handle the Body Slam Earthquake combination from the Mega Altaria. And so if I can get rid of the Sylveon, or if I go for a Body Slam and get a paralysis early on the Sylveon switch in, then I'm really enabled to get a second opportunity with this later on and clean up. Next up is the Pyukumuku, Bold Nature, 252 special or 252 HP, 252 defense, 4 special defense. Baton, Counter, Recover, all standard stuff. Gastro Acid is the funky one. So I'm running Unaware here just to shut down any setup sweep attempts by a Halucha, Mega Gallade, Urshifu, anything like that, or the Dragonite, because Unaware really shuts all of them down. But a concerning thing about Halucha that I'm trying to be aware of is that it has Mold Breaker as an ability which can get past Unaware. And so a sub Halucha clicking Swords Dance would be a really bad thing for me to run into. And so what Gastro Acid does is Gastro Acid takes away the ability of a Mon, which is really great for the Halucha. So it denies it Mold Breaker, so now it can't actually push through the Pyukumuku anymore. And then it also has bonus effectiveness against the Sylveon because I can take away Pixelate. And if I take away Pixelate, then Hyper Voice, which it is likely to run here because my team doesn't have Soundproof to discourage it, it turns Hyper Voice back into a normal type move, which would then give Mega Altaria another window to be able to come in and start Dragon Dancing because Sylveon no longer pressures it like it could have. And Gastro Acid isn't limited to turns. The Pokemon has to leave the field and come back on to get rid of Gastro Acid. So if I were to click it on either of those Mons, I could pivot into into Mega Altaria really well and kind of go for that sweep set. Otherwise, it just really shuts down his physical offensive options. The surging strikes from a Urshifu would just outright get itself decimated with the Rocky Helmet recoil. Mega Gallade can't two-hit KO it. Halucha, if it's not unaware, can't break through it at all. Same with Dragonite. It has no way to break through it. So Pyukumuku is really well set up to shut down his entire team more or less. I just got to be wary of trapping Heatran with like taunt, so I don't want to get caught in the field with that. The Darmanitan with a Choice Scarf, just in case, and I wanted to run Band here, but I'm going to run Choice Scarf just in case Mold Breaker Halucha shows up so that he is still going faster than that, and I have a way of dealing with it. 252 attack, 20 defense, 236 speed, Adamant Nature. The speed investment gets me past Jolly Dragonite, so I'm always outspeeding the Dragonite. Icicle Crash on an Adamant Nature, I'm pretty sure still KOs most Dragonites through the multi-scale, so I'm not too worried about that. U-turn for mobility, Earthquake for the Heatran specifically, and then in case I get caught by surprise and end up accidentally burning my Darmanitan on like a Flame Body Heatran or something else peculiar, I've got Facade on there to just be able to still deal a lot of damage to things like the Sylveon, things like the Halucha, things like the Dragonite, in case my attack stack gets disabled with a burn status. And that's really all he's doing. I mean, it's a pretty standard set, more or less, with the Darmanitan, just trying to get opportunities to get onto the field and then oppress with his power. I think the only thing really kind of keeping it in check early game is the Urshifu, which can kind of safely switch in on most attacks and kind of get some offensive pressure back. So I need to be a little wary of that. But other than that, I'm not too worried about his switch in options. It's just about creating opportunities. And then finally, the Nidoqueen, which is going to be a modest nature, 192 HP, 8 defense, 252 special attack, 8 special defense, and 48 speed. I believe the speed is to creep past uninvested Heatran and a little bit past it, just in case he throws like 8 or 10 or 8 or 12 EVs into speed on the Heatran. I still outspeed it. Stealth Rock, because again, hazard pressure is just trying to stack up here. So if I can get 12% with the rocks plus 25% with the spikes, things like Sylveon and things like Heatran just aren't prepared to handle that. And then things like Tyranitar also whittled down. And then I get some reasonable chip on something like the Halucha. I don't expect to be able to touch the Dragonite just because I expect it to be heavy duty boots. But if it's not, then the rocks obviously help with that. Sludge Wave as good stab, good way to pressure, namely the Sylveon. Ice Beam for the Dragonite specifically, if I can catch the switch in or call it. And then Earth Power is just good stab and a good way to push right through the Heatran. Really nothing special going on with this. I'm just trying to, again, create opportunities for this to hit the field. I expect to be able to lead this turn one just because most of his counter leads, if Pincurchin shows up, Pincurchin doesn't want to counter lead this. Same with the Heatran, same with the Sylveon, same with the Tyranitar. So I feel pretty good about this as a lead going into the match, and I'll see what team preview looks like. But that's my team. That's what I'm going for. Kind of just trying to oppress with hazards, create opportunities for Darmanitan to come in, and then maybe exert some pressure as well with Nidoqueen if I can, and then ultimately looking for a Dragon Dance opportunity with the Mega Altaria to close a game out. So with that in mind, I'm going to transition this over to the match. 1 second. All right. I had a little bit of issue with the proportions of this, so I apologize that it looks a little widescreen right now. I could not get that situated to the way I wanted. I will try to fix that before the next video. So team preview, no Pincurchin, no Hawlucha are really great, means Pyukumuku is just really well set up to wall here. Need to check the Tyranitar set because it can be special attacking if I'm not cautious, and then otherwise I really am not too concerned about this matchup at all. I maybe didn't need Gastro Acid, but I liked the tech if it panned out, so we're going to get into this match. Heatran comes out as a lead, which is one of the things I expected to come out. I am going to predict that it's not going to stay in, so I'm just going to go straight for Stealth Rocks. Second time this season, I have been wrong on the first turn predict, and the Mon that shouldn't stay in stays in against Nidoqueen. In week one, it happened with the Bisharp that surprisingly stayed in against Nidoqueen. This week, it happens with the Heatran. Caught me off guard, did not expect it to stay in, so now I'm just going to go for Earth Power on turn two. Heatran's immediately out of play, which is nice and great. Urshifu comes in. I'm going to hard switch to Pyukumuku in case he goes for Surging Strikes. He doesn't, but he eats Rocky Helmet damage, which is also great. Gallade is going to come in. My Pyukumuku is going to stay in on this. I expect it to either close combat, knockoff, or Thunder Punch. All of those great opportunities to click counter. So he goes for Thunder Punch, and I'm going to go straight for counter. And Gallade has a really bad HP stat, so I think it's like a 68, and so it just gets obliterated by the counter, and I get that out of play really quickly as well. Also really great. Sylveon comes in, which is just a pretty free switch into Nidoqueen. It has to click Psyshock or I think it only has Psyshock. It has to click Psyshock on the predicted Nidoqueen switch in, or it just doesn't pressure the Nidoqueen. But it goes for Toxic, which again is great for Nidoqueen. Sludge Wave is super free for me to click here. He lost his Heatran early. Even if Heatran was still around, I can pretty freely click Sludge Wave and then click Earth Power the next turn. So Sludge Wave is just a really free move. I mean, he could go to Tyranitar, probably should. Dragonite comes in now. By turn 6, I'm already up 3 Mons. Dragonite comes in, does not show heavy duty boots, which makes me think it could be a band or something like that. Makes me retreat on the Nidoqueen into the Corviknight. Instead, it is a Dragon Dance set with leftovers. Surprising item. He goes for the Roost, which is fine. I'm at a U-turn off of this Dragonite into the Pyukumuku because I need to get a safe Roost or recover in early. I know Dual Wing Beat's not going to break me. And so I'm going to get a recover in here so that I can get most of my health back. I think I'm going to recover again next turn just to get my health all the way. I might Baton Pass, though. I recover again, and then I'm going to, I believe, Baton Pass into the Mew. And I'm going into Mew because I need to Will-O-Wisp this to kind of just shut it down. Really bad decision by him not to go for damage here because now I get the burn on the Dragonite, and so Dragonite is pretty crippled. I'm going to skip a lot of turns. I've never done this in a video before, but you're going to see why in a second. We're on turn 13. Where I am at with this Dragonite is basically I have the defensive pieces to hold it with the Pyukamuku, the Corviknight, and this Mew with Seismic Toss and Soft Boiled. I can hold the line against this Dragonite fine, but I have to PP stall it, and it has a lot of PP. So we're going to skip ahead to essentially that point. I'm not going to make any misplays during this time. I run into one bad RNG moment where my Corviknight's going to get frozen for a couple of turns, but I get past that without too much issue. Otherwise, everything else holds the line as it's supposed to. So we're going to go to turn 75, and we're on turn 13. So again, context here. And as you can see, I've managed to spike stack during this time, so all the spikes are out for the Urshifu and for the Tyranitar. It's still burnt. It's run out of Roost PPs, which is why we needed to get all the way to this point. So now that it's out of Roost, I can effectively stall this out. I'm going to hard switch to Corviknight because he has no way to pressure without eating damage. I can slowly U-turn and counter between this and the Pyukamuku and be fine. So I'm going to U-turn, I believe, into the Pyukamuku, and then baton pass right back out into the Corviknight. And we're just going to keep at this. So Corviknight comes in. I believe I'm going to recover a Roost on this turn just to get health back. Ice Punch does more damage, somewhat unfortunate. And then I'm going to hard switch, I believe, into the Pyukamuku so that I don't take any unnecessary chip with the Corviknight, and Pyukamuku is going to take care of it with the Rocky Helmet. So with that, Dragonite goes down on turn 79. 66 turns of wearing down a Dragonite. Never in any real danger, just a slow process. This was a mistake. I should have switched and just scouted this out. It's not the end of the world, but he is my better of the two answers to Urshifu, and so I need to be a little more cautious of that. Probably should have gone into Nidoqueen or something like that, but I don't, and I miss it on the counter, so just a bad spot, bad guess. Going to switch to Mew now, just because Mew is better situated here. I believe I'm going to start Seismic Tossing, or I'm going to hard switch into Nidoqueen on Unexpected Dark Pulse, which is what exactly shows up. Go for Earth Power because you can't switch out of that. And then I get rid of the Tyranitar. Finally, just the Urshifu left. I know it's affected by the Rocky Helmet. I have, even if it's close combating here, it doesn't have a way to deal with it. It's going to eat too much damage from the Corviknight plus the Pyukamuku. I'm going to switch into the Corviknight, expecting a Surging Strikes to come out, which is exactly what comes out. So 3 Surging Strikes is all it needs for Corviknight to KO this Urshifu with its Rocky Helmet. All in all, a long game, but really not a lot happened because we skipped through 66 of these 84 turns. So there was really only 18 turns of interesting action and then 66 turns of me stalling out Roost so that the Dragonite would eventually be whittled down by my Rocky Helmets. I'm really content with how this game played out. Mew was really well situated to oppress. The hazards did what they were supposed to do. My Altaria never saw the field, I don't think. I never saw the field, but my Nidoqueen ended up overshowing itself in this matchup. I didn't expect Nidoqueen to do more than maybe 1 or 2 KOs. It got 3. Pyukamuku gets itself onto the KO board, or maybe adds itself to the KO board. It had 2 KOs this week, one with counter, one with the Rocky Helmet damage. And then Corviknight picks up a nice KO as well with the Rocky Helmet damage. Mew, for the second straight week, picks up no KOs, which is absolutely fine by me. I don't need Mew being overly reliant for getting KOs for my team, and I'm showing that I don't need Mew to be that piece. So really happy with how that played out. I forgot to do it again because the match happened so quickly. So we got rid of the Heatran on turn 4 or 3, immediately followed by the Sylveon a few turns later. Or I'm sorry, we got rid of the Mega Gallade a few turns later on the counter. After that, we got rid of the Sylveon on a Sludge Wave. Took 66 turns, but we did get rid of the, where is he? The Dragonite after a bunch of turns. Got the Tyranitar not too long after that with an Earth Power, and then finish it up with Rocky Helmet damage on the Urshifu. So ultimately, I didn't hide the Tyranitar. Ultimately, what I did effectively in this match, and the aspect I wanted to highlight, is that I really had him get beaten by his own moves. The Rocky Helmet damage broke down his Urshifu, it broke down his Dragonite. The Gallade got itself killed for clicking an obvious physical attack. So this was a game about punishing predictable play, and I had the right defensive pieces to do it, and I took full advantage of it. So really content. I moved to 4-0, positive 20 differential, I think. One of my best starts to, or definitely my best start from a differential point of view to a draft season ever. Going to try to keep that going into week 5, which I do have and I just need to get to. I'm a little behind. I lost all of my setup for my stream or for my videos, so I needed to redo all that, which is why it took so long to get to this video. So I'm hoping it's going to take a little less time to get the 5th one out. I'm going to try to get that up and done in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that.